Okay, maybe you might want to ask the bishop a few questions, one or two questions. Hmm? Yeah, what would you like to ask the bishop? I hope it is not too difficult.
Hope so too. So, Your Grace, something that's really puzzling to me. As Catholic Christians, we're called to live holy lives, as they say, right? And we find ourselves only doing, was having sacrifices during the Lenten season. So, my question for you is, shouldn't we do these things throughout the year and not in the
Just in
time allocated for Lent?
Yes.
That's my question.
I would answer this question with another question. Um, no, maybe let's put it the other way. I remember when I started, I preached on Ash Wednesday. I quoted from the book of Ecclesiastes, um, which is which begins by saying that there is a time for every season, a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to reap, a time to plant, a time to do all kinds of things. Lent is a special time of year for us to look at certain aspects of the life of Jesus. Now, it does not mean that those things that we do at Lent we shouldn't do for the rest of the year, because we are all on a path to salvation. It's just like Christmas. Christmas, we tend to give a lot of gifts to people. We feed the poor. Now, it does not mean that we ought not to do those things during the rest of the year, but those seasons highlight for us what we ought to do all the time. They highlight for us. So, for example, sacrifices. You've mentioned the various sacrifices that you make for Lent. As you continue to live the rest of your life, you will come to discover that you ought to make sacrifices in order to become the kind of person that you ought to be. For example, you talked about the fast foods. Now, fast foods by itself, if we look at it, we can see that it is not too good for the system, but it is very tasty. It's very attractive, and it is very hard to give up, to resist. But even during the year, when Lent is over, you might need to stretch Lent a little further, because if we continue to eat fast foods all the time, first of all, we'll blow up, and then, our health will be at stake because it's a lot of salt and a lot of sugar, and of course, we will suffer from diabetes, all kinds of health problems. So, despite the fact that this Lenten season is a special time to highlight certain aspects of the life of Jesus, it helps us to realize what we ought to do all the time in our year. Likewise at Christmas, that we ought to give alms, we ought to help the poor in many ways. So, it is just a recognition of certain aspects of the life of Jesus that we have to imitate. Okay? Any other questions?
Your Grace, you mentioned almsgiving. Is there a specific association with almsgiving to the Lenten season?
Of course, but there are basically three prongs on which the life of the Christian is focused during the Lenten season: intensive prayer, almsgiving, and which one is then the next one? Fasting. All these are sacrificial things that take us from our comfort zone. They cause us to do something more than we normally do. So almsgiving really it's a natural responsibility of a Christian. Every Christian should give alms. Why? Because there are lots of people in the world, not only in St. Lucia, but lots of people in the world who are dying of hunger. When we think of it, even in St. Lucia, a lot of children go to school without food. without breakfast. And so when we give alms to one person or two persons, we are adding to the general response to the needs of the world. The world is in great need, locally, regionally, and internationally. So our alms giving, what on whatever level it is, it does something to ourselves, because it helps us realize that we really participate in the healing of the world. It may be to one person, it may be to 10 people, it may be to 100 people, but we are healing the world of its problems. So do not underestimate. Do not underestimate what you do when you give alms, when you give to someone who is in need. Because we only have to multiply that, and we'll see that thousands and millions of people are, are devoid of enough food to eat and enough water to drink. Hmm. All right. Any other question?
Okay. So, Your Grace, is there a day during the 40-day period of Lent that I would not say that it's a free for all day, but it's a day that you can do something free?
Free. Okay. There are 2 days in the season of Lent that there is a kind of a suspension. Is the feast of Saint Joseph, the Saint Joseph of Cluny. The sisters on the 19th of March. That's the feast of Saint Joseph. It is a feast, so it's like a suspension of Lent where you could feast. Then you have the fourth Sunday of Lent, which is called Litare Sunday. That is, you'll notice when we go to church, we'll be wearing, instead of purple, we'll be wearing rose, a rose color. It is like a kind of a little holiday, a free space within the season of Lent. Just as in Advent we have what we call our Gaudete Sunday. It means the same as Litare. In Lent we call it Litare Sunday. In Advent we call it Gaudete Sunday. That means joyful Sunday of the year. So these are the 2 days during the Lent. And of course, every Sunday is devoid of fast as well. So on every Sunday, which represents the resurrection of Jesus, people can be free to eat well on a Sunday. Okay. Yes. Any other question? Yes.
Your Grace, why during Lent are we asked to give up meat and like not, like
Right.
something else?
Yes. Why do we give up meat? Okay. Of course, meat is something that people generally like. Huh? People generally like plenty meat, especially in the days past when, well, right now, in our modern times, people eat meat every day. Hmm? But in the days of my parents, they didn't have meat every day. So having meat on your plate in the ordinary time of the week was a luxury. Hmm? Was a luxury, and so in order to s- make that sacrifice for something that you like, you want to give it up, so that you will demonstrate that sacrifice. Now, alternatively, you would say that instead of meat, you'd eat fish. Now, again, in days past, people did not particularly like. They would go for meat instead of fish. Now, today, one wonders whether the fish is any sacrifice at all, because people like fish. So, in other words, if we really decide to be sacrificial in our meals, anything that we like, if we want to truly make the sacrifices that are necessary, we have to either cut down on it, which call abstinence, or we give it up for that period of time, so that we may really feel the pain of that sacrifice. Because if something is eaten because the world says that it is something that is eaten during the Lent, because what I have discovered sometimes, that on Good Friday, for example, there are so many delicacies that people associate with Good Friday, but by the end of the day, they are so filled up with so many things that you wonder where the sacrifice is. In other words, in order to discipline your mind, you have to decide for yourself what is the sacrifice. You know. Now, normally meat is something, as I said, that people like, so it's a way of sacrificing. Now, the other understanding of the meat is that you remember that prior to the changing of Carnival to July, we used to have it right before Lent, and then you had Dimanche Gras, Lundi Gras, and Mardi Gras. Now, gras means fat, There you would eat all kinds of things. And of course the eating would be associated with meat. Meat is in Latin, it is called carne. Carne. So you eat meat, Dimanche Gras. That means that you fatten yourself in order to prepare for that great fast which is coming in Lent. But you would be very young to understand all that. And it's very unfortunate that we have changed the Carnival as pre-Lent rather than as it is right now during the time of July. So, yeah. Yes, she has a question.
So, Your Grace, the sacrifices like the giving up meat on a Friday and a Wednesday, and like the almsgiving and the fasting, that are like for everybody to like sacrifice. Are there more sacrifices like that, or is it more of a personal thing for like you to give up something like?
Yeah. Over the years, the church has developed certain guidelines to help people on the way, For example, the meat that we talk about, to abstain from meat and to abstain from certain foods. But at the end of the day, fasting has to become personal. This sacrifice is always personal, so that I may like, for example, we say on a Good Friday, on a Friday we fast with bread and water, for example. I mean, it is most people. I mean, to eat bread is no sacrifice, and it's also the amount of bread that you eat. There some people might like bread, and might have 2 or 3 loaves. What kind of sacrifice is that? So at the end of the day, despite all the regulations that the church would give us, let us say guidelines that the church would provide for us, at the end of the day, it has to become personal, because we have to feel it. In other words, we have to feel, the sacrifice that we make, so that at the end of it all, when we come to Easter, we will feel that, yes, I have achieved something. I gave to the poor. I intensified my prayer. I said the rosary every day. I went to the chapel every day to meditate. I did the adoration of the Blessed Sacrament. I did something, and I can actually feel by the time of Easter that I have achieved something. But if it is just to look at what the rules are, to know that I achieved those rules, and then I have no feeling of any difference, then it forfeits, the whole situation.
So I know a lot of the time we use words and we don't really know the meaning of it.
Right.
So what I want to know is, do you know where the word Lent originated from, and like what exactly does the word itself mean? Aside from like I know we do certain things during the season of Lent, but I would like to know what the word Lent itself means, and like if it originated from some Latin word, because I know a lot of
Yes.
words that we use in the Catholic faith originate from a word in
Yeah.
Latin, and it's
I'm trying to figure out what the word in itself. It does not come to mind at the moment, but we know that it is associated with the season when the Christians make sacrifices of almsgiving, of intensive prayer, and the third one is fasting. But the word, the root word of or origin of the word Lent, it doesn't come to mind at the moment.
What is Lent for you as an archbishop?
Oh my God. My whole life is a Lent. No, I'm just kidding about it. Yeah. No, yes, it is. It is a serious time for me. I love Lent. I love Lent. Because now this is different from when I was your age. When I was your age, I did not like Lent because it meant sacrifice for me. And in those days, we took it seriously. I knew that my food will be less, about the meats would be less, everything would be less. Then I had to go to Stations of the Cross. So you have to do all those things, and to the retreats. When I was your age, or maybe younger than that, I didn't like it. But now that I'm a bishop, and even when I was a priest, I see it as really a spiritual time, an opportunity for us to really pull back ourselves. Amen. So that my prayer life, I take my prayer life seriously generally, but during the time of Lent, I see it as an opportunity to intensify everything that I do. And of course, the demands that are made of me as a bishop or priest, to preach every Sunday, every day, or to wake up for Mass and do the normal things that I do, I see it as an opportunity. And then I think of the tremendous advantage we have in being able to reflect on the scriptures every day and see the journey that is made during this entire season, how God is speaking to us in the words of the scriptures and taking us from Ash Wednesday to Easter Sunday. I see it as a journey that I make personally along the path to celebrate the season of Lent and into Easter. So it's a beautiful time. So I would like to encourage you when the time of Lent comes, to try to cherish that moment, because it really is a time of renewal, a time of introspection, a time of deepening our faith in God. All right. I think we are up to a half hour. Maybe you will close with a prayer for us, huh? All right. So let us begin in the name of the Father, and of the Son, of the Holy Spirit. Amen. And I'll give you a blessing at the end.
Dear God, thank you for bringing us all here today. Lord, thank you for helping us to have the courage to speak to His grace. Lord, I pray that in this Lenten season, you give us the strength to give up what we love, to praise you, and to learn more about you. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen. And may the blessing of the Almighty God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit come down upon you and remain with you forever. Amen. So I wish all of you a happy Lent and a glorious Easter. All right? Blessings. Thank you.